I finally ended things with my boyfriend who used me financially and expected me to raise his daughter like she was my own. 3 months ago, everything ended with the guy who turned my life into his personal ATM and childcare service. It started small, like most mistakes do. He had a way of making his problems feel like they could be fixed with just a little help from me. A year ago, his name popped up on my phone from a dating app. His profile showed a guy with a wide grin, holding a little girl on his shoulders at a park. The bio said he was a single dad, working hard to give his daughter a good life. That detail caught my attention. It felt honest, grounded. The first few weeks were easy. He sent messages checking in without being pushy. On our first date, he picked a diner near my apartment. He showed up in a clean jacket, hair neat, and paid for his half of the bill without hesitation. He talked about his daughter, who was 6, and how he was trying to keep things stable for her after her mom left. He worked as a delivery driver, picking up shifts when he could. The way he described juggling work and parenting made him seem responsible. His daughter wasn't a secret. He mentioned her early, and it didn't feel like a red flag. He didn't bring her up to guilt me or push for sympathy. It was just part of his life. After a month, he asked if I wanted to meet her. The introduction happened at a playground. She was shy but polite, swinging on the monkey bars while he watched. He didn't force us to bond or make it awkward. That day, things felt normal, like I was stepping into something real without being rushed. Things changed after a couple of months. He started mentioning money problems. It wasn't direct at first. He'd talk about how his delivery shifts weren't paying enough to cover everything. He brought up the cost of his daughter's school supplies or how her shoes were getting too small. These comments came up during casual conversations, like when we were grabbing takeout or walking to the store. He never asked for cash outright, but the way he lingered on those details made it hard to ignore. I offered to help with small things. It started with paying for our coffee when we went out. He thanked me, said he'd get the next one. But the next time, he forgot his wallet. Then it happened again. Soon, I was covering dinners and picking up snacks for his daughter when she was with us. He always promised to pay me back, but the promises stacked up with no follow-through. One week, he said his phone bill was overdue and he needed to keep his line active for work. I sent him $80 through an app. He said he'd settle it when his paycheck cleared. That paycheck never seemed to come. His gratitude was convincing. Every time I helped, he'd thank me, say I was saving him from a rough spot. I believed him because I wanted to. He wasn't living extravagantly. His apartment was small, his car was old, and his daughter's clothes weren't fancy. It made sense that he was struggling. I didn't mind helping someone I was starting to care about. At least, that's what I told myself. His daughter started spending more time with me. It began with him asking if she could come along when we hung out. I didn't mind at first. She was quiet, liked drawing, and didn't demand much attention. He'd bring her over to my place if he had a late shift, saying it was just for an hour. But those hours stretched longer. One night he dropped her off at 6 p.m. and didn't pick her up until after midnight. He said his shift ran late, but his phone was off when I tried calling. It became a pattern. He'd text saying he was stuck at work or had an errand, and suddenly I was watching her. He stopped asking if it was okay and just assumed I'd handle it. I'd find myself making her dinner or helping with her homework while he was gone. She was a good kid, but I wasn't prepared for that responsibility. I had my own job, my own bills, and I wasn't ready to step into a role I hadn't signed up for. When I mentioned it to him, he brushed it off. He said his daughter liked me, that she felt safe with me. He made it sound like I was doing something good for her, and questioning it would let her down. I didn't push back as much as I should have. I liked her, and part of me felt guilty for hesitating. But deep down, it felt like he was shifting his responsibilities onto me, bit by bit. The situation with his daughter escalated when she started needing more than just babysitting. One afternoon, he called saying she wasn't feeling well at school and he couldn't leave his shift. He asked me to pick her up. I worked from home that day, so I drove to her school, signed her out, and brought her to my apartment. She had a fever and needed rest. I gave her water, set her up on my couch with a blanket, and waited for him to respond. He didn't text back for hours. When he finally showed up, it was past 8 p.m. He said he'd been caught up with deliveries and couldn't check his phone. He thanked me, took her home, and left. A week later, it happened again. This time, I found out he wasn't working. A friend of his posted a photo online, showing him at a bar during the hours he was supposedly busy. I didn't confront him right away, but it planted a seed. He wasn't just leaning on me, he was taking advantage. The school started calling me directly when his daughter needed something, like permission slips or supplies. He'd given them my number without asking. It wasn't just a favor anymore, it was an expectation. I was spending my own money on her snacks and clothes because he'd say he couldn't afford it. I cared about her, but the weight of it was starting to feel like a job I never applied for. A message changed everything. His ex reached out through social media one night. Her profile was private, but her note was short and clear. She said she'd heard about me through mutual contacts, and wanted to share her experience. She explained that he'd done the same thing to her, dated her, leaned on her for money, and slowly made her responsible for his daughter. She said he'd play up the struggling dad angle to keep her hooked, but he never changed. She left when she realized she was carrying all the weight, while he coasted. Her words hit hard. I saw the same patterns in my life. The late pickups, the constant money requests, the way his daughter's needs always landed on me. I didn't reply to the message, but I saved it. I started paying closer attention to him. He'd stop talking about work or plans to get back on track. Instead, he'd complain about how hard things were, then wait for me to offer help. I tested it once. He mentioned his car payment was due, and he might lose his vehicle. I didn't offer to cover it. He brought it up 3 more times that week, each time sounding more desperate. When I still didn't step in, he stopped mentioning it, and somehow the car was never repossessed. It confirmed what I'd been avoiding. He was playing me. I decided to keep track of what I was spending. For 1 month, I wrote down every dollar that went toward him, or his daughter. It added up fast. Groceries for the 3 of us when they came over cost me $300. I paid $150 for his daughter's school supplies and winter jacket because he said he couldn't cover it. Gas for picking her up or running errands for him was another $100. Then there were the smaller things, $20 here for her lunch money, $50 there for his, overdue, utility bill. By the end of the month, I'd spent $900. That number stared back at me from my notebook. It wasn't just money, it was time, energy, and pieces of my life I hadn't meant to give away. I brought it up to him one evening, keeping it calm. I said I'd been helping a lot and needed him to step up. He got quiet, then defensive. He said I was keeping score like his ex did, that I didn't understand how hard it was for him. He mentioned his daughter looking up to me, how she'd started calling me her other mom when I wasn't around. That caught me off guard. I'd never asked for that title, never agreed to it. It felt like a line he'd rehearsed to keep me locked in. The conversation ended with him promising to do better, but nothing changed. If anything, he leaned harder on me, like he was testing how much I'd take. The final straw came when he brought me a form from his daughter's school. It was for an emergency contact. He'd already filled in my name and number, saying it was just a formality, that the school needed someone reliable. I read the form and saw it wasn't just for emergencies, it included agreeing to pick her up if he couldn't be reached. I told him I wasn't comfortable signing it. His face changed. He didn't yell, but his voice got sharp. He said his daughter needed stability, that I was letting her down by hesitating. That night, he kept going. He brought up how much I meant to her, how she'd be hurt if I pulled back. He said I was acting selfish, like I didn't care about her future. It was the first time I saw it clearly. He wasn't asking me to be his partner. He was asking me to be a parent, a bank, a backup plan, all while he did whatever he wanted. I went home and couldn't sleep. The form sat on my table, unsigned. I thought about his ex's message, the money I'd tracked, the hours I'd spent waiting for him to show up. It wasn't love. It was a transaction I'd been tricked into. I didn't owe him my life, and I didn't owe his daughter a role I hadn't chosen. That clarity felt heavy, but it also felt like freedom. The days after the school form incident were tense. He texted less, but when he did, it was about his daughter needing something, new shoes, a ride to a friend's house, or help with a school project. Each request felt like a test to see if I'd cave. I started saying no, keeping my responses short. He didn't argue, but I could tell he was frustrated. He'd wait a day, then try again with a new ask, like nothing had changed. I stopped going to his place. I didn't invite him to mine. The distance made it easier to see how much I'd been carrying. My apartment felt quieter without his daughter's drawings on my table, or her backpack by the door. I missed her sometimes, she wasn't the problem, but I didn't miss the pressure. I started checking my bank account more carefully, setting aside what I'd saved by not covering his expenses. It was a relief to see my money staying mine. One night he called, saying he'd been in a rough spot and needed to talk. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail, his voice low, saying his daughter had asked about me. It stung, but I deleted it. I wasn't her mom, and I couldn't keep pretending I could fix their lives. That call was the last time I heard his voice. It felt like a door closing, one I hadn't realized I'd been holding open. Ending it was simple. I didn't send a long message or meet him to explain. I packed the few things he'd left at my place, a hoodie, a pair of sunglasses, one of his daughter's books, and dropped them in a box outside his apartment door. I didn't knock. I blocked his number, his social media, everything. There was no fight, no tears, just a clean cut. Looking back, I see how he'd built a trap, piece by piece. The sob stories about money, the way he'd leave his daughter with me, the guilt he'd layer on when I pushed back, it was all deliberate. He didn't want a girlfriend. He wanted someone to handle his responsibilities while he skated by. I'd spent over $2,000 in the last 3 months alone, not counting the time and energy I'd given. None of it was coming back, and I was okay with that. His daughter stayed on my mind for a while. She deserved better than a dad who used her as leverage. I hoped she'd be okay, but I couldn't save her from him. Walking away was the only way to save myself. Months later, I heard through a friend that he'd started dating someone new. I felt a pang not for him, but for her. I didn't reach out. My life was mine again, and I wasn't giving it away.